movie time with John DeSando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island. 'Cause nothing's better than a motion video.
It's Movie Time. It's produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to broadcast shows Fridays at 4:01 and 8:01 p.m. Read reviews and listen to shows online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm K G Kline.
And this is It's Movie Time. Now, Ken, you've been talking to me for half a year about this movie called The Brutalist. And I said, this sounds really tough to me, but I had to see it. So, but first of all, I want to know, why are you so excited about that? I've never seen you.
I was excited about this movie because this movie, when you look at the cast and you look at the people involved, this movie had the potential to be really something amazing. And certainly, if you're talking about the big films of this year, this movie wins by sheer tonnage. It is 3.5 hours long with a 15-minute intermission.
And you thought Oppenheimer was long.
And I thought Oppenheimer was long, but Oppenheimer doesn't hold a candle to the length of this.
Well, I've got to disagree with you, because I think this is actually one of the best movies to come in years. And if it doesn't win the Oscar, then it just has some things like its length and its heavy dutiness going for it.
And I'll get to that, because one of the issues I have with this movie is this movie was created as Oscar bait. and that I actually have a problem when a movie it creates a checklist of what it thinks it needs to win the Oscar and then make sure it checks all the right boxes.
All right, this is a fictional character.
This is well, let's point out to the audience, this is a fictional story. This is the first thing you need to know, folks, going into this movie, is this is not Oppenheimer, this is not Ali, this is not Malcolm X, this is not a historical docudrama about a real person. Everything about this movie is fictional. When you're done with this movie, if you Google, you will not find the places you see in this movie. You will not see the buildings that were constructed or the name of this character anywhere. It was all fabricated. But this particular director does his movies in the style of Oppenheimer, in the style of Malcolm X, in order to earn them a sense of historical accuracy that I don't believe they earn.
Okay, now I would say, could you compare it at all with The Fountainhead? Do you remember?
You can compare it with The Fountainhead, you can compare it with Atlas Shrugged. You can also make an interesting comparison with The Agony and the Ecstasy.
Okay, yes, and that kind of grandeur. I was also thinking of There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood is another one, yes, that you can compare to. And the movie, here's my issue with the movie, is it feels very incomplete to me. Even at 3.5 hours long, this feels like it was a 6-hour movie that got cut to pieces, and all you have left is the essential elements, which is the conflict. This movie has absolutely no context. There's no context, no background given to any of the story elements.
One of the interesting things here is that it doesn't really attack the whole brutalist movement.
No. And you wouldn't want to attack the brutalist movement.
And metaphorically, the film itself is like the brutalist movement. It's just kind of standing there imperturbable. Remember, the brutalists favored concrete.
Oh yes,
as their medium, and there's nothing beautiful about concrete.
No.
And the Laszlo Toth doesn't appear to be interested in fashioning beauty in the traditional sense, nor the brutalist movement. It seems to be interested in, well, I say psychologically after World War II, they're trying to reconstruct the world.
The brutalist movement, which is to some extent what this movie is about, it's about an architect. We'll back up a bit. The movie is starts out in 1947, but spans an era from 1947 up to 1980. So we're talking 35 years here that this movie jumps around. And it does so in multiple segments, that each one has a title card. But the idea is that Laszlo Toth is a Hungarian Jew who was in the concentration camps during World War II, came out, immigrated to the United States, and takes a job as a dock worker. He is then discovered by a wealthy philanthropist who decides he's going to use Laszlo to create this civic center as a memorial to his mother. And that's the essence of the film. But what is the
Which will indicate the weakness of Harrison Lee Van Buren, that it's not beauty, it's to his mother.
It's a dedication to his mother and to the community. And here we're touching upon why the movie, I feel, fails, is that you will learn nothing about any of these elements from watching this movie. You don't learn about architecture from watching this movie. It's out of context. You don't learn about the Hungarian Jews in the Holocaust from watching this movie.
But let me just say, I had a feeling that I was in on it when he had his model to show the people who were going to
Oh,
the
yes, yeah.
I mean, I had a feeling of this blocky, kind of cumbersome architecture. I had some sense of it.
And we have a lot of brutalist architecture here in Columbus. The perfect example of brutalism is the Ohio History Center, right off of I-71 by the fairgrounds.
Good point.
Big blocks sitting on top of a mound, no windows, at least none that you easily can see. That's a classic brutalist building. Brutalist buildings are very angular, they're very blocky, they look like they were made out of Legos in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But they're not generally attractive.
No, they showcase their raw building materials and structural elements with minimal decoration, typically featuring, I'm taking my Wikipedia now, featuring simple geometric shapes and a heavy monolithic appearance. The term originates from the French béton brut, meaning raw concrete. How about that?
Yes.
I'll tell you what, it makes me attracted to this film in the fact that I'm hungering to know more about that architecture, when in fact the two writers and the director are interested in the development of the character of our fictional architect. And I think at the same time they are doing a brutal job, so to speak, on capitalism.
Oh yeah, well capitalism and, right, let's,
There you go, I know.
okay, yeah, you triggered me here. What I want to say about this movie is that when a filmmaker creates a docudrama like Oppenheimer or Ali or Malcolm X, there's a contract that exists between the filmmaker and the audience that the audience can trust the filmmaker to present their facts accurately and historically correct. It's like when you open a history book in school. You take it for granted that whoever wrote that history book, or how many people wrote that history book, did their fact checking, and what they're presenting to you is factual so that you can come away believing that what you've seen is true. What this film does is it tries to earn that historically accurate credit, but fails to deliver the historical accuracy. It's a lie, it's a cheat. It had so much opportunity to touch upon things that American audiences haven't seen before. We haven't seen a film about the Hungarian Holocaust. Hungary had the second largest Jewish population in Europe. And they weren't invaded until the spring of 1944 as the war was winding down. They lost 500,000 people for absolutely no reason. The only reason Hitler invaded them was to get the Jews to Auschwitz. But they don't tell that story.
Ken, you know, I love listening to you, and you're reminding me. I began writing my review, and I'm several hundred words in before even getting into the meat of it. This film is so rich in allusions and themes that I find myself in awe, really, of its epic quality.
It is a beautiful film, and I cannot ignore the beauty of the film. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from going to this. Go see this movie. It is a beautifully filmed movie. Yeah. It does something very interesting with its camera technique too. I don't know if you caught this.
Oh,
but it uses shifting focus much more than any other movie I've ever seen.
But not Orson Welles' deep focus.
No, it doesn't use deep focus. It uses a very shallow plane of focus.
Well, also if you have our protagonist here and you have someone else in the background, they shift the focus.
They shift the focus back and forth, and that is a very tedious and difficult way to make a movie. You end up with about half of your takes failing for technical reasons. Somebody wasn't quite on their spot, the camera overextended its focus, something goes wrong. Actors hate this.
But that makes me think of, for some reason, Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And the ambitions of Orson Welles on that, and I think Corbett has similar ambitions.
There's one scene in this movie that I have to point out where they're laying together in bed near the end of the movie. He's facing up so that we get to see his face. She's facing towards the camera, facing him. Each one is out of focus at any given moment. Whoever is speaking is in focus, then the focus shifts to the other one, then the focus shifts back, then it shifts to the other one. And in one case, one is talking but still out of focus, well, the focus stays on the face of the other. Really fascinating scene to watch.
You have to be impressed with the opening montage when he's actually arriving here, and the inverted Statue of Liberty imposed upon all the other images that are chaotic, and even in the sound you have a mixture of all kinds of people talking over each other, and symbolically, of course, it represents what is going to be a most difficult journey for our architect.
It is a beautiful, beautiful film to watch. And that, above any other reason I can give, is the reason to see this movie, is to see the beautiful way in which this movie was filmed, the way in which it was created, the cinematography. What it's missing, though, is it's missing those little moments of dialogue between the characters that creates a character.
All right, let's continue this on our podcast. But that means,
and this is going to be a brutal podcast, folks. I want to touch upon a lot of history.
People have to go to Backtalk.
Yes.
WCBE.org, podcast experience, to Backtalk to hear more. And excuse me, and I can hear people out there saying, more DeSando this time. All right, since you're going a little bit after this film, and here I am supporting it. Anyway, so Ken, I think you've already told people, it's an experience, it's a film experience worth doing. Is that correct?
It is the front runner for the Academy Award, very likely to win.
Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island.